Okay, let's get a question in. It was never God's intention for us to die early. Okay, so that's a two-part statement. The first part is, how do you know it wasn't God's intention? Because if it wasn't God's intention, then we wouldn't die early, right? Since when does God's word return void? Right? So if it wasn't meant to happen, then it wouldn't have happened. Okay? The second part is us dying early. What is early to you? To imply that your standard of life is what it's supposed to be. In other words, we're supposed to live until we, old age. All of us. That would imply that we all have the same expiration date. That no child, no teenager, no adult, only old people, really old people, should be passing away. And that makes absolutely no sense, right? So we have to think about an alternative probable reality to this situation. So how do we know that someone died when they were ready? And how do we know that it's God's intention? That it's God's intention that a person dies at whatever age, whether it's a child or an adult. How do we determine that? Well, the first thing I said. If it wasn't God's intention, then it wouldn't have happened. The second thing is that we are a soul. Our soul is individualized consciousness as God is universal consciousness. What is universal consciousness? Awareness. What is awareness? Energy. Okay? Awareness is energy. And that awareness is just simply being aware that you exist. So at our core of our being, we are all energy. Okay? And energy cannot be created or destroyed by the laws of physics. Right? So if we are energy and we cannot be created or destroyed, which hence God was the beginning and the end, right? But God wasn't created. God was just there. God is awareness. It's awareness that he's aware that he exists. And I'm only saying he for human terms because a lot of people, refer to God as a he or she or whatever the case may be. God is energy. Our soul is individualized energy. Our soul is also consciousness. Our soul is also awareness. And we are intrinsically, spiritually connected to our Creator. God being a big fire, a big forest fire, and us being a little match. But what does these two elements, one element have in common? Is there anything the big fire have that the little fire doesn't have? Nothing. It's just a matter of degrees. So this small fire, which is us, have the full potential of this fire. This is God. This is us. Okay? We operate in the power of our Creator. We operate in the power of our Creator. The same way our human children have every aspect of who we are. Of all of our biology. We haven't left anything out when we gave birth to them. God has not left anything out when he created himself or herself or itself. Hasn't left anything out when he took parts of himself and made sparks of energy, individualized consciousness. So because we are individualized consciousness, intrinsically spiritually connected to our Creator, we as souls have free will. And free will is the master key, is the answer to all of this. We get to choose. We choose to come into this world, and we get to choose when we are leaving. Soul contracts are created prior to coming into this earth, where we make agreements with family and friends and our community. We choose our hair type, our body type, whether our ethnicity, the region of the world we're going to live in to learn the lessons that we're coming to learn. We choose all these things. But free will helps us write the script as we go along. So soul contracts are the blueprint that we come down here with. But it's not marked in stone, because we have free will saying, you know what, your soul says I wanted to go this way, but now that I'm here, let me go that way. And we get to make choices every moment of our life, so long as we're adult, because as children, of course, we're governed. But we get to make choices every moment of our life, whether we're going to go hither or whither, up or down, whether we're going to stay stagnant or whether we're going to succeed, whether we are going to live, or when it's our time to pass away. And that, dear, is a subconscious choice that our human mind cannot comprehend, but we know a soul is in there, right? And since our soul created our bodies, it's up to the soul to release that body. At the end of the day, I'm not saying that, you know, a conscious human said, okay, I'm ready to die now, let me go. I know plenty of old people who beg to die every day and they're not going yet. It's because their soul haven't chose to. But the moment that their soul chooses to, their soul will release the body and it will find a way out of the body. Whether it's through disease, whether it's through an accident, whether it's just through old age and using old age to just exit the body. Either way, it's a way out of the human system. And the soul makes that choice because the soul is eternal. The soul is eternal. The soul does not die. We simply leave. We go to sleep and we wake up the same way we woke up here as infants. That's what happens. Okay? That's what happens. So when you talk about God intentions, well, in reality, we are God. In a sense, we're guardians, learning how to become God. Remember the little fire and the big fire? The little fire have everything in it that the big fire have. The only difference is a matter of degree. Okay? With a little bit more momentum, with a little bit more oxygen, we become bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And so we get to write our script. We have free will here. We get to choose what we want to do. On a soul level, things that our brains know nothing of. And so when we come across a crossroads of life and death, whether it's through an accident, whether it's through, I don't know, addiction, whether it's through whatever it's through, whatever brings us to the point of death, the soul makes the ultimate decision whether it wants to continue in the human body. And that's my point. Okay? The body doesn't die and then the soul in God says, oh, well, couldn't control that. All right, so you know what? Let's not. No, they would have already intervened before it even got to that point. You know? The body doesn't control the life of a person. The soul does. And so the soul leaves. And that's what happens every time of death. Now, there was another question where they said, what if the body is totally decapitated? Can the soul fix that? Well, no. There's the laws of physics and the laws of spirit, right? And they don't cross. They don't cross. They have to stay within bounds, all right? The laws of the spirit, the laws of metaphysics is going to respect the laws of physics, right? And so, of course, the soul can take a splattered body and do it. It'll be a miracle, of course. You know, I don't know how that'll happen, but nothing is impossible with God. And since the soul is part of God, that's what it is, right? So, in the case of somebody being totally dismantled through an accident, the soul probably chose that to make sure that it has a swift and clean exit out the body with no chances of returning, with no chances of staying. And it uses that particular situation or experience or painful accident to make its way out of the body. The point is, no one leaves before they are ready to. We don't die ahead of time. We only die when we're ready. Hope that cleared it up for you. My condolences. Bye-bye.